Our second text for the day comes from John's Gospel, chapter 1, verses 1 through 14. Continue to listen for the word of the Lord. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came into what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave the power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, as the glory of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Did you know that the elongated reflection of the moon on a body of water, that off-painted streak of white across a black lake, is called a moonglade? Or, in the 19th century, if your Londonshire neighbor complained that you were born a bit tired, they were suggesting that you were habitually lazy, incapable of working even a few hours each day. Better yet, if you hear someone describe their state as frobly mobly, that means, using a dialectical English from the 17th century, that they feel neither well nor unwell. Not yet mubble-fubbles, which is, of course, in low spirits, as you know, or even fetchy-letchy, which is insipid and lethargic. They, frobly-mobly, like so many of us, are just okay. If you know me, you know that I like to talk. I love to chatter about football and historical oddities and esoteric facts. But it's not all in the talking. The fact is that I like words. I like the sound of them. I like playing with pronunciation and puns. I like doublespeak and alliteration, consonants hard and echoing and lulling soft vowels. I like the idea that meaning can be captured in just a few arrangements of letters. Words bring me great pleasure. Or at least they can, or they did. I wonder these days if the joy of language, the beloved philology, to use Emily Dickin's phrase, has become a nuisance. We consume language, I think, all of us, like a buffet. We grab whatever we want, however much we want of it. We make whatever meaning, fill ourselves up with those words, and we sort of glaze over the more challenging ideas, the ones that might press us and push us beyond our boundaries. We hear what we want to hear in that way, and we say what best fits our narrative. We marshal words like weapons, and we ignore them. Words, words, words. Every time I clear my inbox, 67 new emails arrive on cue. I am constantly texting, probably enough to make an 11-year-old girl blush. All around me, wordy advertisements promising all sorts of joy and happiness and extended life and younger-looking skin. They follow me across the internet. Facts and alternative facts. Every time I turn on my television, they overwhelm my news feed, and each new day brings competing stories and finely spun narratives. I love words, but I didn't need any of 2020's offerings. I didn't need doom scrolling or QAnon. I didn't need quarantinis. Well, I needed them, but I didn't need to know the word. I didn't need to know about super spreaders and Karens. It seems today that words are ubiquitous. They dog us. But meaning, when we most need it, meaning is scarce. It's strange, then, in a world full of words, that we are told of the good news of God, the Word. You'd think another noun would better fit to break through all of the noise. We can ignore words. We've gotten pretty good at it. But the action, could you ignore the action? God, the glory, the being, in the beginning was the power, has a nice ring to it. Perhaps that's what we need as we ring in this new year. Or better yet, something you might see on WrestleMania, something that would really catch your attention. Consider this. In the beginning was the Macho Man. And the Macho Man was with God, and the Macho Man was God. I imagine that would get your attention. That would set COVID on its heels. The Macho Man can power through all of our traumas, can just bulldoze them and glaze over them. But no. Amidst all of our talking, all of our incessant chatter, amidst the hum that is meant to distract and divide us, we are gifted this season, according to the fourth evangelist, with the Word. The Word by which all other words measure themselves. Not the incredible, not the great, not some Marvel comic offering the Word. The Word back before the universe, back before in the beginning. Indeed, at his beginning, the fourth evangelist takes us all the way back before beginnings, back when there was no time, no space, back when there was only Word in communion with the Father by the power of the Spirit. The Word who was God, the Word who was with God. Before we hear anything else about little baby Jesus, we have to go back to the deepest reaches, beyond our comprehension, outside of everything we know and recognize, outside, frankly, of anything that words can describe. The evangelist anchors his good news on the promise of the Word. Now, in Hebrew, the idea of word has a playfulness about it that we don't quite capture in English. A word is not a simple thing. It's not only a collection of letters that add up to a certain meaning. A word is a living reality. A word does not only refer to an object or idea, it makes meaning. It creates. So it is that when a person says, for the very first time, I love you, a new thing is generated. Saying I love you is part of making one's love real. It is generative. When he points to the Word, our writer is, I think, picking up on the Hebrew idea of generative speech to give greater meaning to beginnings. The speech of God generates the reality of God in creation. God, out of sheer hospitality, sheer grace, creates for us a beginning, a new good thing. Not because it was necessary, but because it was indeed very good, and it was high time that the Word speak. And that this new year, that's not some frobly-mobly news. That is the best news, even especially now. Because what that means, that the Word created and creates everything, the generative Word, is that there is no corner of creation, no outer boundary in our world that does not echo, ring with the generosity, the peace, the love of the Word. There is nothing through which the Word cannot speak. Nothing that is void of the image of God, the love of God, the peace of God. The Word is the boundary of our existence and the stuff of our being. The Word is our breath, so constant that we forget its necessity. In the beginning, and in all of our beginnings, is the Word. And that is good news, especially now. Oh, but I can hear you. I can hear what you're all saying. Here goes Leigh in all of her sermons. She talks and talks and talks. She spins her nice tales full of words and words and words, told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. A word sounds nice, you might think, but to we who are in the thick of it, in this flesh and blood world, to we who read the newspapers, see the ambulances, sit anxiously in hospital waiting rooms, a word seems inconsequential. What can a word do after a catastrophic year? What can a word do when we long for hope? What can a word do when it seems too dark for any light to penetrate? Yet again, I submit to you that a macho man might have been a better choice. But we have to keep reading, because this is the beginning of John's story, and it's not simply about some disembodied word, some ethereal ground of our being. This story is centered on flesh and blood reality just like ours. This second Sunday after Christmas, we have not only to do with the Word, but with a faraway scene where a new mother tends to a newborn child. The impossible, the contradictory, the scandalous and beautiful affirmation of Christmas is that the Word, the generating principle of all life, the bounteous gift of shared love, the light which cannot be quenched, has become flesh, dirty and fragile, weak and precious. The Word has become flesh and lives among us, not on a throne, not riding valiantly into battle, not in a legislator's seat, in a back alley manger in a podunk village, lies the Word, screaming at the top of his lungs, hungry for his milk and his mother, the Word of God through whom every single thing came into being, serenaded by a drummer boy, if you call a drum solo a serenade, brought in practical gifts by the well-meaning magi, and hunted by a jealous ruler. The Word became flesh. In that sentence, in those little words, all human hope is contained. The Word, the power, the glory, became flesh so that our endless chatter might become generative too, so that our living, our just getting by, might become abundant life, even now, so that our darkened fear might be transformed by brilliant light, so that our Word and our world might be once again very good. That the Word became flesh is a regime-threatening claim. Even today, it is not a disinterested promise. It is a promise for our world and our systems here and now. It challenges all banal speech, all foolish spin, all empty narratives. It is the Word by which we measure every other thing. To say the Word became flesh is to affirm everyday existence. It is to affirm the worth of our flesh and blood siblings throughout creation. It is to affirm human dignity. It's to affirm one another. It is to see and recognize one another, to see God in one another, To say the Word became flesh means that God so loved creation that He came to this far country, not to rescue us from it, but to reconcile us with it and to transform us to a new way of living that echoes the goods of Genesis. To say that the Word became flesh is to affirm light and seek it out, to shine it, and to, by the power of the Spirit, cast out all of the world's darkness. Why else in this gospel prologue, this triumph of biblical literature, would the fourth evangelist include the strange interlude about John, the one who came as a witness to testify to the light? By pointing to the Baptist, the evangelist points to us. Will we, like John, be witnesses to this Word, who is greater than all of our words, all of our worlds? Will we, like John, point to this lowly Word whose presence is light and life? Will our own words be generative, upbuilding His kingdom, affirming the image of God and human dignity in all of our neighbors, honoring the good creation of which we are stewards? The work of the Baptist is the work of Christmas. We come to His manger not just to see where He lie, not just to gaze on this lowly scene, but to point to Him amidst all the world's darkness, to speak His word and do His work, finding the lost, healing the broken, feeding the hungry, releasing the prisoner, reconciling all peoples, and bringing peace. We, like John the Baptist, find ourselves holding the light of the Word, the light of the world, the beginning of beginnings, flickering and fragile though He may be, and though we are. The good news, the very good news, the news that raises us above the frobly-mobly, is that there is no darkness too dark. There is no terror too real to quench, to comprehend, to overcome the light. It shines, and the darkness will not, cannot grasp it. You know, maybe the macho man is too much. In our world, we don't need more power. We don't need more steamrollers. We don't need more show. We need meaning and purpose. We need the Word. If we are lucky, at the bottom of all of our talking, our incessant chatter, at the bottom of all of our words, we will stumble upon the Word made flesh, seldom and tremblingly partook, fragile in a manger, fragile on the cross. He will call us to account, not because we are great sinners, but because at the beginning and at all of our beginnings, we were created very good. And by the power of the Word, the sustaining power of the Spirit, that good image in each of us, it remains, it holds, and it makes possible transformation. It makes possible light. It makes possible good. By taking hold of that light, the light which points us outward beyond ourselves, outward toward podunk Bethlehem, toward back alley Greenville, those places we would rather not drive through, toward the poor and the outcasts of our world, the vulnerable in our society, whomever they might be, the despised. That light, it points us toward them. And if we take hold of that light, and if we speak that word, we can transform all of our beginnings by the power of the God who creates and sustains and transforms all of us. Happy New Year. Hear the word, listen now, and grab the light and get to work.